In the past few weeks, we've been talking about lineage, and in particular, the anniversary of Lord Jigten Sumgon's Parinirvana was this week. So last week and this week, we've been talking about Lord Jigten Sumgon. So just go slowly. So just sort of seeing our Sunday prayers as a type of review. Remember Gampopa? So we're starting with the 4 dharmas of Gampopa. Okay, go next page. And then this first page is uniquely Drikung. Most Dharma centers throughout the world, all levels, start with refuge. All Mahayana include the Bodhisattva vow and the 4 immeasurables. But this prelude uniquely comes from Lord Jigten Sumgon, which is the reminder that we're talking about directing bodhicitta, especially towards our enemies. Our friends are easy to love, or most of the time easy to love, but when we say all sentient beings, he's reminding us everyone. And then this beautiful short teaching of every moment using our intention to guide our body, speech, and mind. All right. Then Sarah, can you go down to the dedication prayers? Oh, hold on a second. The Bodhisattva vow is included in this beautiful bodhicitta prayer from Shantideva, and it speaks about relative bodhicitta.
We'll have to tip, so.
Then we have the Heart Sutra, absolute bodhicitta. And now if you go to dedication and keep going. Oh, hold back a little bit. All right, so this very last dedication prayer is the treasure of Lord Jigten Sumgon. May the teaching of the great Drikungpa Ratna Shri, another name for Lord Jigten Sumgon, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence. So particularly today, we're going to be talking about this aspect of Lord Jigten Sumgon, master of interdependence. So today is going to be a little more on the complexity of his view of the Dharma, but I just want you to see, you can unshare now, Sarah, that you can find everything in our Sunday prayer book. We're referencing how he taught and what he taught in a very accessible way. So last week I talked about his overcoming of leprosy and how that was something we can relate to. Having illness and despair and not the kind of support that he would have wished for, and understanding that when he connected that to the suffering of all sentient beings, that it was the key to the vast enlightened mind. So it was we've all experienced illness, we've all experienced those kinds of moments in our lives, and it was a very human connection to him. And today I want to talk a little bit more about his legacy. And the legacy starts with, he became enlightened, his leprosy left, and he continued to stay in retreat 2 more years. And he said the first 5 years of his 7-year retreat, he didn't know how to meditate. And it was the last 2 years that brought about his vast understanding and the meaningful Dharma understanding and the merit of that led to the Drikung being founded and what we have today. So it has to do with his understanding of interdependence, and his concentration increased, and there became no difference between meditation and post-meditation. So it was a complete understanding of how emptiness arises as cause and effect, which creates the whole interdependence of our individual lives and the world that we experience. And a formal description of this would be, during this time, causes and results with respect, both outer and inner, in other words, origination, independency, in its entirety became evident. He saw how the outer vessel of the world, in its multiplicity and diversity, arises from its respective causes, and how the inner, the essence, all being endowed with mind, arise from their respective causes, each and every sentient being. He also understood through outer material things result in such and such actions, how the inner, the respective thoughts produce such and such meanings, and how through the secret dependent origination, respect to the body, good and bad qualities result. He saw all of this. So this is to say, he understood the indivisibility of relative and absolute. And in that indivisibility, he could see at the most minute level causes and results, becoming the world, becoming sentient beings, how even our intentions lead to thoughts, sounds, actions. It's hard for us to even imagine I keep using the word vastness of his understanding of the indivisibility of cause and effect with emptiness and with what we experience in the world, how we experience the world that we're in. So I went to, part of his legacy is the book called Gomchig, which are 150 pith Vajra statements. And in the Drikung, everybody memorizes, well, I haven't memorized them all, but part of the education is studying these Vajra statements, and if we have good memory, memorizing these statements. But the very first statement goes straight back to the indivisibility of relative and absolute. And as you know, it's always the first statement that defines the view that in the Tibetan style of writing Dharma teachings, that view then is pervasive throughout everything else. So the first Vajra statement, Dharma teachings explain the true nature of all phenomena. All Dharma shows the basic disposition and natural way of abiding. Basic disposition would be relative, and natural way of abiding would be absolute. When we studied Shantideva's, the Bodhisattva's Guide, also the very first verse talks about the indivisibility of relative and absolute. So in myriad ways, this is what he taught. So because this is such, let's just say this is not a simple statement. This is your Dharma life, starting to understand relative and absolute. And from the perspective of absolute, we know from the example of his life, it took him 5 years to have an experience of the absolute, and then another 2 years of solitary retreat to really understand this indivisibility. So again, we're studying on Sundays, we're studying, snippets at a time. So I just want you to give yourself grace and patience that when we talk about the absolute, what we are working with now is just sort of piercing our habitual understanding of I'm over here, you're over there, the chair sitting there is a chair. And does the chair exist the way I think it exists? Or is there more to the chair? Or is there an arising of causes and conditions that appear at this moment as a chair? 100 years from now, it's probably dust. So we're just inviting ourselves to see if we can, for a moment, apply doubt to our habitual way of viewing things. And to look at the relative and start to learn from our relative experience in a way that leads us to a greater understanding of the absolute. So from this perspective, Lord Jigten Sumgon's view is, okay, as students, we start by understanding karma. And then when we thoroughly understand karma, at an intermediate level, we start to explore the basic nature of emptiness. And this is not ultimate emptiness, but the intellectual exploration. And then as that becomes an experiential understanding, we move to the ultimate, which is beyond conceptual understanding. So teaching is, and our learning is done in these stages according to his recommendation. And from this perspective, when we're talking about karma, we're looking at what causes harm and what causes suffering and what causes a release from suffering. So I think we pretty easily turn some of the teachings on karma into morality and then debate what morality is. But from this perspective, we're looking at really what causes harm and what causes accumulation of virtue or accumulation of merit. So all of samsara is determined by our accumulation of harmful actions and positive actions. And when we reverse the load of harmful actions and increase the positive merit-filled actions, that contributes to our capacity to receive teachings and understanding the teachings. So it's very, very key. The more merit we accrue, the more we will have the extraordinary circumstances of being able to meet great teachers, study with great teachers, and understand what they're saying. So it's not about creating some punitive morality. It's looking at the natural way of abiding and the natural function of cause and result. If we do something that harms someone, that will result in misery. And I'm looking at Tara, and yesterday Allison arrived with all these bouquets of peonies. So offering peonies to Tara is, or flowers to Tara, that's an accumulation of wonderful merit and will result in being able to receive and understand teachings as a seed form that accumulates in larger and larger ways. But let's say, how did we use our day today? How did we use our day yesterday? Did we use it by making lots of offerings? Or did we use it by all the various things that might have been lesser. So beginners, we're starting at the gross level, looking at our actions and gradually getting more subtle till we look at our thoughts and look at our intentions. So another teaching that we have from Lord Jigten Sumgon is then, all right, if we're looking at accumulating karma and seeing what is beneficial and connecting that to bodhicitta and connecting the relative and the absolute to bodhicitta, how do we see it in those terms? And he gave a beautiful talk really on lineage, and that what the lineage transmits is this knowledge about relative and absolute bodhicitta. So he's being very consistent. The first key is understanding the natural abiding of relative and absolute, and then taking that to bodhicitta itself. And most of the time, the trainings that we're doing are in relative bodhicitta. And we specialized for almost 6 weeks in his loving kindness training, which is a training in relative bodhicitta. So relative bodhicitta is that which begins with the intention, I will benefit all sentient beings. So we have this altruistic intention, which we formalize by taking the bodhisattva vow. And his particular advice is we can take the vow, we can have this intention, but unless we do all the trainings that show us the details of keeping the vow perfectly, all the myriad ways we can think of engaging and building our understanding of relative bodhicitta and know what weakens our vow. Taking the vow is, in his words, useless without paying attention to the training. So he's saying, all right, it's good karma to take the vow, but once you have the vow, it's all about understanding what intentions, what thoughts, and what actions continue to enhance keeping the vow and building our understanding. And his recommendation for daily practice is to set the intention by, often we're repeating 3 things, but start at daybreak with repeating the bodhisattva vow or your bodhisattva intention 7 times. And then go throughout your day, and I'm going to read the teaching. Take the vow about 7 times, and throughout the day, all activities infusing body, speech, and mind with bodhicitta. In short, I shall attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings, and everything I do shall serve this purpose. With all the activities of body, speech, and mind generated by relative bodhicitta, like that, put it into practice. So at this moment, we don't yet have realization, let's say, of the absolute, but we understand the relative. And to gradually get to the point where we realize the absolute, it begins with mindfulness throughout the day and mindfulness of our thoughts, words, and deeds as being infused with the purpose of benefiting sentient beings and generating bodhicitta. And this is why so many of the great teachers have, we call them gathas, beautiful little sentences or reminders. When I go out the door, may I open the door of enlightenment to all sentient beings. If I'm walking uphill, or going upstairs, may I bring all sentient beings with me. And you can create your own so that you're infusing all of your activities, night and day, with this purpose and aspiration of relative bodhicitta. Then, when he addresses ultimate bodhicitta, his teaching is all phenomena encompassed by samsara and nirvana are one's own mind. And this mind is essentially primordially unborn and is emptiness free of all extremes of elaboration and effortlessly present. Unborn, non-conceptual, effortlessly present. When this is realized, the great ocean of suffering that is samsara is completely abandoned. And then he has a beautiful key sentence that is echoed by great teachers in different ways. Even when there is mere doubt, is the mind empty or not, samsara is weakened. So that is what I was suggesting earlier about our study of the Heart Sutra. Just by entertaining a doubt, is the chair over there a chair, or is it causes and results arising from the ground of emptiness as a chair momentarily? Just the doubt of the assumption that it's just an ordinary chair over there that I sit on causes samsara to be weakened. He then quotes Aryadeva, for doubt about all of this to occur is something extremely rare. Merely a single doubt is extremely rare. And with a single doubt, samsara is understood. So there's no need to mention that samsara is abandoned through realization. So that is where we're heading, into the absolute. So we can say that here in the Drikung lineage, studying with Lord Jigten Sumgon, the master of interdependence, the key statement that he's leaving for us is all the Buddhas taught and all of the Dharma that was taught comes down to the indivisibility of relative and absolute. And we can apply this relative and absolute to our growing awareness and understanding of bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is something that we are actively training in and we can relate to. And we can understand, okay, we are growing in our relative bodhicitta and trying to learn more about that every day. And when we try and think about absolute bodhicitta, one way to look at it, if he says all phenomena in samsara and nirvana are none other than one's mind, then this is expressing that incredible concept that is so, we're just trying to touch it, but that would be all phenomena, the world, its contents, all sentient beings, are one's mind. So, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, absolute bodhicitta is the realization that we are. we inter-are without duality. So we can't say we inter-are, we could say inter-are isness or inter-are suchness. And if we could understand inter-are suchness, there wouldn't be any obstacles to bodhicitta because we wouldn't be differentiating. And we wouldn't be in any way having fear or doubt or let's say any kind of self-protectiveness in terms of, I'm not sure I can do this. I would burn out if I thought of all the suffering beings. The inter-are suchness is when all of that has disappeared and there's just inter-are bodhicitta. But we start with, all right, day to day, what in my thoughts and words and deeds cause harm, and what in my thought and words and deeds benefits self and others, brings me closer to Buddha nature, brings me closer to the aspiration of understanding the Dharma, with the intention always held of benefiting all sentient beings. So I'm trying to take something that's, even in the first Vajra statement, a complex and vast 2 sentences. And then how do we break down understanding it ourselves and break down a lifetime of studying towards it? And with this understanding that he held of the myriad causes and conditions that gave rise to each individual's experience of the world that was unique to that individual, he could see exactly what teaching that particular individual needed and what was the specific block in understanding that that individual had. So what practice would be the starting point for that person? So in his later life, what's recorded is meetings he had with people, problems he solved in different places, how he took this understanding of karma and made sure each step he took, each action he took, only caused benefit and didn't cause any harm. With a complete understanding of how careful and mindful you would have to be not to cause any kind of harm. And that's why it's interesting to read his biography. So he took ordination as an older adult, full ordination, in order to increase the benefit of his actions. He founded a monastery. He went to Drikung, which was, it'd be like going to, saying, all right, I think my monastery should be where this concentration camp used to exist. Like, where is a very harmful place that's considered tainted? What spot needs the most help right now? And so he brought these incredible teachings and founded the monastery in a place. There had been a lot of illness, a lot of killings, was inhospitable, and then turned it into this wonderful monastery. He was constantly recommending that people go into retreat. He went in and out of retreat himself. And he had wonderful students who then recorded Gonchig, the Vajra teachings, and wonderful students who recorded, I think it was Sherab Jungne, I could be mistaken, that beautiful bodhicitta practice, his personal instructions on how to practice loving kindness that leads to our growth. So we're taking it step by step. You have an introduction to what happened after he came out of retreat and started giving Dharma teachings, and the particular view that guided how he taught and how he structured teachings to build towards beginning students. What could they understand? What did they need to understand in order to understand clearly? What teachings were appropriate at the next stage and what teachings were appropriate at the next stage. And what's interesting to me is sometimes we hear beginning, middle, and advanced and think that that has to do with perhaps intellectual capacity. But really, Khandro Rinpoche in her teachings emphasizes that our capacity to understand is based on our merit and the virtue we've accumulated, the karma that we've purified. And so Lord Jigten Sumgon's view that you start with looking at cause and effect and your day-to-day behavior and learning about karma, even in the most basic way, and then using that to look at, I want to understand more about bodhicitta. Well, what are the 50 trainings that go with the bodhisattva vow? That this builds the understanding and capacity for you to then understand and realize the emptiness teachings, and then finally the realization of emptiness. So us Westerners, we get so ambitious. We want to go to the top. I want to get emptiness, and then we sort of skip over it took 5 years of solitary retreat, and it took, the accumulation of extraordinary merit, and it all starts with, what is my behavior in the next second? What is the intention that I'm holding, and how am I acting with that intention to benefit all sentient beings? So we are moving along in this Sangha step by step, and looking at really some of the key teachings and looking them slowly and carefully. I won't be here next week, but the week after we'll start the Words of My Perfect Teacher, which I think is the most accessible of the, we call them Lam Rim, or the path teachings. And we haven't gone through this kind of structure in our Sangha yet. We've been studying some of the great works on stabilizing the mind and establishing bodhicitta. And now we'll be looking at the path with all of this as a perspective. So remember, if it seemed a little more complicated today, it's right in our prayer book. It's in the prayers we say every day. And from Lord Jigten Sumgon's perspective, the whole path is in each prayer, in each activity. So we can find the path as at the level that we're able to understand it, begin there, and then expand moment to moment and expand our capacity as we learn how to hold our intention and be mindful about our actions more constantly and moment to moment throughout the day, unimpeded, unceasing mindfulness that puts our intention into action. Okay. So hopefully we made some sort of heart connection to Lord Jigten Sumgon last week, and we've established trust with the loving kindness training that we do so regularly that allows us to say, all right, then his direction is to then steadily look at cause and effect and integrate that into our daily lives. Let's see what happens when we do that. So let's take a minute just to think about this, and then we'll have some questions and answers. And I'm going to repeat that first Vajra statement. All the Buddhas of the 3 times teach the same things. The Dharma teachings explain the true nature of all phenomena. All Dharma shows the basic disposition and the natural way of abiding. So we have last week the human being who went through the same struggles that we go through and used those struggles step by step to attain enlightenment. And then his legacy, which are these very profound statements, which he asks us to open up, unpack, contemplate, relate to, and then look at how they translate into our daily life. So we'll close the YouTube before we go to questions. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, once it's where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.